Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast. Today, I am joined by Tim Engelbrecht, who is the founder of Greedy Bear, Sydney's Mead brand. Welcome.
Mate, thanks for having me, Amy. It is so good to hear your voice and see your face. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Now, I probably didn't do the best introduction there. So tell our listeners what on earth we're going to be talking about today and what Greedy Bear is all about and what is Mead.
Okay, so Greedy Bear is Sydney's very first meadery, and mead is when you take honey and you turn it to alcohol. That's the most basic explanation. And our dream is to make the world's most sustainable beverage and be the first to do it on a very big scale in Sydney, Australia.
Fantastic. Because until you started down this journey a few years ago, I don't think I'd ever heard of Mead. But actually, it's been around since sort of medieval times.
Yep, that's right. Most people haven't heard of mead, and if they have heard of it, they think you're a wizard if you drink it, or you play Dungeons and Dragons, or you're a bit of a misfit or a bit of a nerd. But you don't have to be those things to drink mead. It predates beer. It predates wine. It's technically the first alcohol humankind ever consumed. It just sadly went out of fashion in the medieval times, and people speculate that we would have discovered mead accidentally. So in honey, there is already naturally occurring yeast just hanging about in there because bees, they go to all the different flowers and there's yeast on those flowers. So they put all this yeast in this honey just by accident. But when you mix water with honey, once honey reaches a certain amount of water content, it will start just spontaneously fermenting. So if you just got some honey from your kitchen, as long as it wasn't heat treated, and you put it with some water and then put it on your bench top in the sun, it will just start making mead. So they speculate that a very ancient tribe from like 10,000 years ago would have stumbled across maybe a little nook in a tree, and there was some rain, and the rain washed a beehive into the nook, and then it kind of created a puddle of honey and water. And they're like, oh, this smells pretty funky. And then someone tried it, and then they got a bit drunk. Like, this is pretty cool. So then they've continued making it. And there's another theory, to not bore you, but there's this, what do they call it? The wine skin theory, I think. It's when going, a long time ago back in China, people were bringing honey home from a raid or something, and they must have had some water in their bladders or something, and it spontaneously fermented. Then they all drank it and got drunk, and then it predates everything. Just sadly went out of fashion shortly after the medieval times, when beer and grape wine was much cheaper to produce.
And that's what I was actually going to ask. Why do you think it went out of fashion? But you've just literally answered that there.
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of interesting how it went out of fashion. But one of my theories is just it's actually really difficult to make. Back then, the beekeeping methods were quite barbaric. So we work in unison with the bees to produce honey. But back then, they had these giant mesh you can actually see pictures of it if you look it up on Google, these giant mesh bag things, which the bees would inhabit and then build their honeycomb with inside it. But then to access it, you'd have to destroy the entire hive to access the honey. But now we don't. Now, even with flow hives, you just have a tap. You can turn the tap on and it starts pouring honey out of it without even upsetting the bees or anything, which is amazing. So back then, it was actually quite a bit of a hassle to do it, but it was more of a hassle to go and, plow a field of grain, because that takes a lot of grain to make beer. But they figured out how to, do that. And I guess agriculture just spearheaded the wine industry and beer making.
Gosh, wow, that's fascinating. Because I've done a little, I was telling you just before we started this podcast that a few years ago I'd done a project actually here in Australia with a company that was involved in honey. And I went to beekeepers' hives and things. And I was fascinated all about what goes into the beekeepers and, what's happening behind the scenes that, you just really don't even think about at all.
Yeah, totally.
But tell us, how on earth did you get into this? Because since I've known you, you obviously a wedding photographer.
Correct.
So how have we gone from being a wedding photographer to launching Greedy Bear, a Mead brand?
Yeah, it is a good question. So it kind of went back maybe 10 years ago when I was going through a very primitive kind of explorative journey. And I was not wearing shoes. I was going, what did our ancestors do? That's the way to do life, Wasn't wearing shoes. I was eating nothing but meat and limited vegetables and fruit. And I was learning how to hunt and tan animal skins. And one of the questions I had was like, well, what did our ancestors drink? Did they drink alcohol? So anyways, I went down that rabbit hole. I made some mead with some friends. It was actually pretty good for our first attempt. And then I flirted with the idea of making it commercially back then, but I was just a bit scared off by the upfront investments. I would need to get, a winemaker involved. I'll need a facility. And at the time there was only maybe one brand at Dan Murphy's, one of our biggest alcohol chains here. And it was very sweet and, heavily spiced with cloves, just the traditional way. If you've had mead, that's how you think it is, which we're not doing that, by the way. It's very different. It's very modern. Anyways, and I was spooked by the idea. I thought it was too ambitious. So I just went on with my life, developed this wedding business and just pursued that for, the next 10 years or so until I met someone at a wedding. I met this lovely guy, Nick, from One Drop Brewing in Botany, and they're award-winning, amazing beer makers. And he was like, hey, do you know Mead's actually kind of going crazy in America right now? And I was like, what are you talking about? Because we were talking about Mead, because he brewed stuff. I brewed stuff, obviously casually, but we had found some common ground around brewing and we're talking about it. And I said, what are you talking about? Went online, and he wasn't lying. Out of the top 10 breweries across the world, 7 of them were meaderies on this Untapped website, which I still think it's pretty close to 7 or 6 of the top breweries, which is incredible. So I was like, what are they doing differently? Oh, they're carbonating their mead. They're putting fruits. They're using hops. They're using a lower alcohol percentage so it can be a bit more sessionable. I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been missing. This is the missing link to my journey. And then I went deep into development of the first original sparkling mead that we produced.
Did you go over to the US as part of your research?
Yes, I went to the US for 2 weeks and I jumped from the biggest meadery to the biggest meadery, and I, spoke to the mead makers there to figure out, what are they doing differently? How are they selling their mead? Who are they selling their mead to? And then when I got back, I was just on fire, and I was planning to launch this crowdfunding campaign. And then I was just like, guns blazing, let's just pull the trigger on this, and started a crowdfunding campaign for the first batch that I made, and sold 4 and a bit, almost 5,000 liters in a very short amount of time, which is pretty cool. So I managed to raise about $36,000 and I think most of that was in the first couple of days of crowdfunding. So I just smashed through the milestones. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely shook by just how much friends and family got behind this crazy idea. And as some strangers too, some complete strangers, but it was really, really good start, and super pumped to make it, a full-time gig. But then I kind of hit a bit of a roadblock with this advertising body that kind of, they assess that the packaging of alcohol brands is appropriate for children and it's not too appealing to them. And they deemed our first packaging too appealing to minors. So that was a big, fat, wet blanket on the whole project. So I was like, crap, well, I've got to start basically again. And that is exactly where I am right now.
Gosh. And because you had actually already got it into stores at that point. into, as we said, Dan Murphy's and things. So it's such a kick to feel that some of the retailers have obviously accepted it, and then others, obviously, when you're going to the governing body, are like, actually, you need to change the whole brand visuals.
Yes,
and aesthetics.
exactly. Yeah, and that's right. And we were selling kegs. Every single week to a bunch of venues. We were moving a lot of merchandise, which was crazy. It was like really, really exciting to be alive at that time. And then I was like, well, there's no point going harder at this because we're going to get roadblocked with the bigger retailers like BWS and Liquorland, which are there's like the holy trinity of the alcohol stores here. Dan Murphy's, Liquorland, and BWS, and 2 out of 3 weren't going to touch it until they got pre-approval from ABAC. So, anyways, went back to the drawing board and I redeveloped the whole branding, which was an absolute wonderful and annoying journey. There are a lot of people out there promise a lot of stuff and don't deliver. Anyway, so the first design was like a $3,500 job. I don't have a specific on me to go if that's interesting to your listeners, but the first job was $3,500. So I kind of got what I paid for there. It wasn't ABAC approved. Got smashed for that, but that's okay. I always went in there knowing that this was kind of like a test run. Things are going to change, but I didn't know it was going to change that radically. But then I found I was umming and ahhing. I had a few graphic or agencies lined up and finally caved into one. I was like, got a good feeling that it's going to be perfect. Then when I got the work, it was just really, really average. And everything was amazing. The service was incredible. I kind of said as a metaphor or a simile or something, I said it was like going to like a 5-star Michelin restaurant. You guys gave me like world-class banter. Entree was incredible. Ambiance was like next level. And for mains, you served me like eggs on toast. And on it, like you can only believe it when you see it. I'm not going to show you out of respect for these guys. But anyways, through them, after spending 10 grand with them down the toilet, and that was half what they were asking. I then went to the designer who I was linked through them, thankfully, and got to where we are now, which I flip and love. So it all ended up well, but, spent 10 grand more than I needed to, which, as a startup, that really hurts.
Yeah. And especially when in reality, the bit you're passionate about is actually the mead itself, the actual product. But actually, You're going on a whole journey of the branding side and the marketing side that perhaps, you hadn't set out necessarily for that part of it.
Yes, that's right.
Have there been any other things a bit like this that on this journey that have happened that you just didn't expect were going to happen?
So, yeah, ABAC was a big, that whole bit getting rejected by ABAC for being too appealing to minors was huge. Paying 10 grand more than I should have for packaging was massive. Let me think about anything else that was a bit of a roadblock. The only other surprises was like the fact that it did so well to start off with. But in terms of, surprise, I think they're the two major roadblocks, but I managed to, overcome to a certain extent, just power through, and I'm hoping to at least recoup some of the damage done in the next run if I can sell. So the goal, I'm planning crowdfunding for the 15th of April, and I am shooting for the moon and going for 100 grand this time. So 100 grand in 30 days is the goal. And yeah, hopefully that can get me back on a good path and get this thing into bottle shops all over Australia.
Amazing. And is there anything from your first crowdfunding journey and the one that you're about to embark on that, that you've learned, that if anyone listening is thinking about going down the crowdfunding route for launching something themselves, anything you've learned, what you'd recommend?
I think do it. Firstly, I think it's a really, really clever way to not only pre-sell to reduce risk, but also market yourself in a really fun kind of organic, down-to-earth way. It's allowing people to come on your journey with you. So one of my strategies was to create a podcast which kind of removed the veil of behind the scenes. So you could listen to conversations with lawyers, with liquor licensing experts, obviously edited to make it a bit more entertaining, or voice messages from this person and that person, just to kind of bring you along for the ride. So I think that's something really that people resonate with. And And I guess they want to know like who the founder is. Like I personally, like I sometimes go to other people's like seltzer websites or something, and there's nothing about the founder there. I just think you're just some global conglomerate. Like who cares about you? I want to know who's behind this. So I think really removing that veil and like, this is who I am. And obviously go hard on a crowdfunding video. That was probably one of the biggest things that this is my unfair advantage. And, you know, we all have unfair advantages. Your unfair advantage is the fact you have the gift of the gab and you can chat. So you're good at this. But
why? Thank you.
My unfair advantage is making media things, just because that's my background, coming from the wedding photography and filming stuff, and I'm a bit of a dickhead in front of a camera, so that came quite naturally to me. And I think that crowdfunding video did really well, and I think got a lot of people on board.
Absolutely. And I'm chuckling because obviously before we've recorded this, you've given me a sneak peek at the upcoming crowdfunding video, and I'm just like, oh my God, mate, the quality is just awesome. You know, you don't have to hire any talent because you are the talent. Yeah. And, you know, you do it obviously just so naturally, but then you do have the skills for the editing, the video production, etc.
Yeah.
And
it's unfair.
Yeah, those sorts of stuff really to get something off the ground, you know, where you've talked about perhaps branding and getting that design, visual design part right, for other people as well, really to outsource getting an actual slick video made. And then if the founder themselves isn't perhaps as good on camera. And I mean, just my last podcast episode was me doing a solo one, and the amount I just had to keep, I'm going to say that again. You're going to redo that. You know,
self-edit,
Yeah, and I just kind of like kept stopping it and restarting it and everything. So you've definitely got, you know, that part down to a T.
Thanks, mate.
Which adds a question. Where did the name come from? Are you the Greedy Bear?
Yeah, well, it's funny. So I did do some soul searching with that first agency, which I was kind of bad-mouthing. Lovely people. We did a discovery session, and it was almost like a small psychology session. And we came to the conclusion that Greedy Bear is an extension of who I am. And that's totally okay. You know, Greedy Bear's a little bit cheeky, likes to have a drink with a mate, and likes adventure. So I'm always doing weird, wonderful crap. Like, I don't know, I went from a walk from Manly to Bondi back to Manly. And it was 160 kilometers, and I did it in 40 hours straight with no sleep. So I love adventure. And this for me is just a big adventure. It's a big selfish adventure just to see how far I can take this thing. That's exactly what it is. So that's a part of the brand identity. It's like adventurous. It's for people who are, you know, willing to step off the beaten path and try something new. This isn't for your person who's like, I only drink red wine. That's it. Like my wife, she appreciates it. She can enjoy it, but she's a red wine girl, and that's totally fine. I don't expect to please everybody with this drink, but it's a bloody delicious drink, and it's going to appeal to people who have a bit more of an adventurous side.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that because we have sampled the beverage ourselves. And I think for someone like myself, you know, who I am the wine drinker, but also I'm a Prosecco drinker, cider, beer, I typically find perhaps a bit too heavy. I've really got to be in the mood for it. So for me, with that sparkling, refreshing hint of the honeyness, you know, and it doesn't have the artificial taste to me personally. It doesn't have like that really. If you think of some of the brands who have, you know, the flavored ciders specifically, you know, flavors advertised, you know, they can be either super sweet or they just obviously taste, you know, obviously artificial.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the main kind of points of difference for this. This next one is 4%. So it's one standard drink, one Australian standard drink per can. And it's very, it's dry. It's a dry to like mildly, the slightest mildly sweet. So it's always been at the top of my mind to make this a sessionable drink that you can enjoy a lot of responsibly, and enjoy it and not be fatigued by the sweetness. Because honey itself is actually naturally perceived as a higher sweetness because of I think it's the fructose. Don't quote me, but there's something about honey that makes it perceived as sweeter. So you actually need less of it, which is so cool. So this is just like a little prototype that I've got here in my hand. I'm just flicking this around right now, but it's 99 calories per can. but has so much more flavor than a seltzer. So most seltzers have about 99 calories or so. So it's more similar to a seltzer than it is to a cider, I think, but it's somewhere in between. But because of the perceived sweetness of honey, you can have so much more flavor, way less calories. So you can have the tick calories of a seltzer, but like the flavor of a subtle cider, but also these other rich bouquet of flavors which you just don't get from any other fermentable sugar. So it's a pretty special drink, and I'm really excited to bring it to the world. Well, not to the world, just it's out there already, but to particular my hometown, Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah. You were highlighting a couple of things there about obviously some of the product almost features, USPs, but is this a problem for the retailers, have you seen so far, of where they categorize it?
Yeah, big time. So there is no Mead shelf, as you know. There is no Mead shelf, not yet. So I'm kind of hoping that a lot more competition will see this do well. I know Heineken was testing a Mead in America, so people are onto it. But there is no Mead shelf. But if I was to categorize it, I guess the easiest way to it's a general refreshment. So that falls into your ginger beers, your ciders, your seltzers, your other kind of mixed things. But I think it sits in that craft cider and alternative beverage section, which is going to be next to the ginger beers, I think. That's where I'll put it.
And depending where you're based in the world, so if you're Australia, the UK, US, or, across Europe, would the taste and experience of mead be different subject to the origins of the honey?
Oh, yes, indeed. So this is one of the cool things about mead. It's just like wine. So technically we're classified as a winery, but honey has its own unique properties, and it depends on what pollen has been fetched from the bees and turned into honey. So you get all these amazing. It's just like grapes. You might have a amazing Shiraz grape that has a really particular character. It's the exact same thing with honey. So you can taste the difference in a red gum honey than you would from an orange blossom. So orange blossom is a very popular honey to make. So that's from the blossoms of orange orchards. And it has a real perfumey, like you can smell the orange perfume on it. I personally, it's not my favorite honey to brew with because I think Australia has its own eucalyptus honey, which is really, really special and can be utilized. But yes, you can have crazy different changes in the flavor just by changing the honey alone. So even without getting excited about fruits or hops or anything else, you can get just honey. But then you can do some cool things, like you could have a really cool red gum honey, Australian red gum honey, and you could caramelize it. And when you cook it, it reduces the water content even more, and it turns it into this beautiful kind of toasted nuts and caramel flavors, and it just totally changes the experience again. So, and it's even crazy because then you can start doing splits between wine and beer. So there's this thing called a braggot, which is kind of an old school name. I personally would brand it differently, but it's as long as it's got 51% of the fermentable sugar from honey, then it is classified as a mead. So you can go 49% from grain, 51% from honey, and then you get yourself a braggot. So you can get some of these crazy expressions of creativity and flavors from mixing, like a highly malted grain mixed with some, exotic honey. And then you can do the same thing with grapes. So you can get, the mixture of 51% at least honey, and then get grape juice, and then like a really big Shiraz. You could combine a Shiraz with some other crazy honey, and then you get yourself a piment, which again, I think these names have these old medieval connotations, which I want to kind of flip on its head. But you can take this and then you've got cider. You can mix it with cider, and that's called a cider. So it is so underexplored, it is so undervalued, and I think the time for mead is now.
Yeah, and I could just see chatting to you, how excited you are, how passionate you are about this. And just seeing you reel off all these different options and alternatives, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, the possibilities are pretty much endless when you can make this combination. Yeah. When you've obviously faced some of these challenges along the way so far, what is motivating you to keep going? Why not just stick with the wedding photography, which you're awesome at?
It's a good question. I've put myself in a very uncomfortable position by selling my main photography business and just going out solo. So I did that, which has given me a little bit of runway. Where I'm not rich by any stretch, but it's given us some runway, some breathing room to make some to take some risks. But why? It's a good question. I think life is a bunch of projects. Some people see it as like a job or something, but I just have to create things. I don't know if I've been built that way, designed that way. I just have to make things, and if I don't, I'm miserable. And I got to a point with the wedding photography, which I'm still grateful. It's a great job. It creates a decent lifestyle for our family. But right now, obviously, the sheer quantity of that is dropped dramatically since selling the business. So we're feeling, every time we spend something, it's like, ooh, that's offset loan. Ooh, that's coming off the house. That kind of stuff. But why? I think just creating stuff just brings me joy. And I am passionate about making, the world's most sustainable beverage. And the fact that Mead, I think, apart from water, of course, the most sustainable fermented beverage, it can be Mead for so many factors. So if you take beer, for example, we use 15% of the energy that beer does to brew, and we use almost less than half the water to brew the same amount of liquid. And that's because of the absorption in the grains, and they have to boil for hours to get their wort. We don't have to do any of that stuff. So it's very environmental on that front. But the fact that we're using honey that already exists because of our food system. So I don't know if you realize this, but avocados, oranges, most fruit and vegetable have been pollinated by commercial bees. So
I don't think I
from
did
all
know
this,
that.
Yep. So basically, most of your food. So people say, I think it's 2 out of 3 bites, or 1 out of 3 bites. I think it's 1 out of 3 bites on your plate are responsible. Bees are responsible for those bites. I think that's the rough mathematics. But I did some maths based on some data from Beechworth, which is a huge honey producer, and their estimation is, well, my estimation for every can of Greedy Bear. This next batch, 1.9 million flowers have been pollinated in the process of making the honey that goes into that. That's 1.9 million flowers that have been pollinated. So that's pollination for our food supply. That's pollination for bush regeneration. You don't get any of that when you're drinking beer or wine. No disrespect to those guys. And if you want to plant an entire crop of grain, you have to decimate the landscape. You have to firstly completely annihilate, blitzkrieg the land, and then put a monocrop. And monocrops don't do anything apart from grow one thing. They just freaking kill snakes and birds and freaking because it's a full on process, and nature is not meant to be a monocrop. So, but bees actually are stimulating the creation of more plants, and so it's really special that we can use such a amazing, like literally it's liquid gold. It's liquid gold that we can use that to brew with.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim, for giving us such a journey, well, a history lesson, an environmental lesson, a fermentation lesson into the world of mead. That has been fantastic. Obviously, something I like to do with all of our guests is to pull out some of the really good conversation cards. So I'm jumping in with some cards from our Kids Volume 2 pack, as I know what a light-hearted soul you are. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions here. So question number 1. If you could have a secret magic door in your room, where would it go?
Oh, that is good. Where would it go? Oh, it would take me. Oh, man. It would take me to the hills of Rohan from Lord of the Rings. That's where it would take me. It'll take me, and there would be Shadowfax, my horse. My horse would be there, ready to go. That's exactly where it would take me, to a nice little magical place where I can get away.
I love that. And you did say before you do love adventure as well. So, yeah, I thought it would be some sort of quite adventurous response.
Yeah.
Question number 2. If you could be any age for a day, what age would you choose and why?
Oh man, these are good. These are good conversation pieces, aren't they? I was going to interrupt here for a second and say, I backed your crowdfunding, and
Thank
Mim and
you.
I, my wife, we took the sets on a date, and Mim's like, oh, it's a bit dorky, and I'm like, oh, let's try it. And it wasn't dorky. It was really good because when you've known someone for almost like 10 years, like we have, you feel like you know everything. But then these questions just kind of like took us deeper into different levels. I've never thought about asking her, like, you know, who do you look up to the most in your life? Like some of those kind of questions, and you can get some really good answers. So highly recommend. But anyway, so the question was, what age?
And I will say you've never had the chance to tell me that before, so that is awesome to actually hear.
No.
So
No,
live
we
on
loved
air.
it. We went, yeah. We went to a bar and we just pulled them out and just played the game, and it was really good. But I would be, what age would I be? Flipping heck, I would go back to the glory days of rollerblading in my cul-de-sac. So I guess I'll be like 10 and playing, like watching the Mighty Ducks and then playing roller hockey in the cul-de-sac. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I guess why? Why would you be 10 rollerblading?
Why? Just the carefree days. Like at that age, you could still have a bit of autonomy. You could go on adventures. Like we used to go down to the tunnels down at the park and, you know, blow stuff up with crackers, and it was the best.
Yeah, there's definitely something about that era of like almost zero responsibility.
Yeah.
And like adulting. I almost don't feel there was enough of a warning / lesson in some of the adulting part.
Yeah. It's so true. You need a uni degree for that stuff.
It's the life admin that really gets me, that, you know, is the time consuming things that should be straightforward take, you know, so long. It's that part that I'm like, oh, this whole section.
I know. I'm going to RMS tomorrow. Not looking forward to it.
And the final question, number 3. If you found a genie in a bottle, what would your 3 wishes be?
Oh, man. I would wish.
You get 3 wishes.
I would wish. Oh, that is 3 wishes. Oh, man. I would love the ability to fly. Let me fly. I think that would be amazing. And I would also, oh, man, just not to have to worry about, okay, not money for the sake of money, for, you know, having a Lamborghini. Like, who cares about that crap? That's just whatever. But like, for the sake of being able to do it, like fund my weird ideas. So I could be like, screw it, I am going to build a physical meadery tomorrow with like, you know, $2-3 million. Like I could do that. So I think just an unlimited bank account so I could execute these weird, wonderful adventures I have in my head. I don't care for the Ferraris, put them in the bin, but like give me a Yaris anyway, like a Toyota Yaris, maybe the turbo version of the Toyota Yaris, just for a bit of fun. But anyways, and the last wish, I just want my little boy who's 4 just to grow up and be happy and content. That's what I wish for.
Oh, I love all of them. They are amazing. Thank you for sharing.
That's all right.
And the very, very final question that I ask all of our guests is, if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I would Jack Black. I would approach Jack Black. And can I ask him 2 questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, the first question would be, play me the greatest song in the world, or play me the best song in the world. I'd ask him that. And then I would secondly say, can you please come over for dinner because my wife really likes you.
That's been a selfless act on your behalf. So you're actually asking for, your wife's benefit, to make her happy.
He's a cool guy. Like he's hilarious, and he'll be a very fun dinner guest, but I think the joy Mim would get from hanging out with Jack Black for a night would be incredible. I'm only allowed to ask him a question. It doesn't guarantee that he'll come over, but I'll at least ask him that question.
Excellent.
Come over for dinner. Will you come over for dinner?
And then you can get a pack of cards out when he comes over for dinner, and then you can ask him lots of weird and wonderful random questions.
And we can have a good conversation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time for today's episode. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. I mean, it's always a delight when I see you and speak to you personally and professionally, but it has been quite a while, actually, since we have
too long,
actually caught up and spoken with all what you've had going on and what we've had going on. But yeah, tell us some links where people can find out more about you, about Greedy Bear, about the upcoming crowdfunding. This is a big push, shall we say, milestone for you guys this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so greedybear.au, there's a whole new website and crowdfunding page launching on the 15th of April. So get around that, because every carton we sell is going to be another step towards 100,000, which is going to be just an incredible milestone if we hit that. So greedybear.au, there's no .com, just .au. It's the future now, ladies and gentlemen. We don't need a com anymore. We're our own people, Australia. Anyways, so greedybear.au, don't forget it. And if you want to, check out my wedding photography stuff, it's on Instagram. It's at Tim, R-E-C-H-T, Tim Recht. I've shortened my last name because it's very confusing, as Amy knows full well.
Yeah, we did have to. We called me introing Tim because I couldn't pronounce his surname.
Yep. You and many people.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I wish you all the very, very best for everything on the horizon with Greedy Bear and all of your other adventures, endeavours and future creative projects. So thank you so much.
And back at you. Thanks for the good conversation.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.